Well, happy Tuesday. Wow, I'm a little rusty. I'm feeling like I haven't been here for a while. I'm Dr. Laurie Davis, host of the Today Show, and it's Tuesday, so it's a short week. And my co-host, Dr. Ramin Modiri, didn't we just see each other all week?
Yes, actually, it's strange that I was almost there, sitting right next to you. Actually,
Yeah, right here in this space.
here we go. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so just want to thank our viewers for their patience in our absence last week. We were traveling and working and no time for shows, but we're back on track. So thank you, Ramin, for being here. On Tuesday is our Money Matters conversation, but so much happened last week. There was an election in the United States. We were traveling to the north. Um, gosh, it was just a whirlwind week. Over to you.
Yes, no, it was fantastic. So, first of all, thank you for your hospitality. It was awesome to be with you in person. There's nothing like actually having that real connections. And I had the pleasure of meeting some of our members, our friends in person. And
Mhm.
again, it's wonderful to have this technology, the Zoom and on virtual. But I tell you, that human connection and being in person is something else. So
Yeah.
it was wonderful to
Well,
be
it's really hard to hug online,
exactly. We all need
right?
hugs. So yes,
Yeah, you bet. So you arrived, let's see, we picked you up on Wednesday, and then on Sunday we traveled east and north, and we stayed with some friends in Saskatoon and got to catch up there. And then on to the north and did two workshops, two big workshops, two-day workshops, and processed, can you believe this? I didn't think about it, but processed 25 people through our retreat called Reclaiming My Self Worth. And it was amazing. And I felt so excited to be doing that again because, prior to COVID, I never ever did that retreat online. That was always an in person experience. So with COVID, that made it an online experience. But the outcomes are the same. People have the same realizations. But when you're in a room with people participating in the processes, I don't know about you because you sat through the two of them and participated and helped me. And but wasn't it fun to see the light bulbs go on?
oh, absolutely. I mean, that's something that mentioned in person. It is so powerful, and I've been to many workshops. I've done a lot of them, and uh, just I remember in 1990, I took uh, my group. I used to have a company, and I took them to Tony Robbins was just getting famous, and we sat there. It was awesome. It was like 14 hours. Everybody's excited, but there are like thousands of people sitting there. As much as the information we got, that follow up and also that personal, really deep connection is very important. So when you have like thousands of people, you really can't get through the individuals because each one of us have issues. And as I mentioned, my employee, they were so grateful, they loved it. But a week later, we are back to exactly where we started. They were sugar high, the caffeine high, and now and there's nothing to follow up. I mean, Tony's doing all his things, and I've been to many, many of those. Um, so the work that we did, it was in those groups because of also the connection between those members, and I was so actually I was amazed at how open they were, and it comes
Mhm.
from here, and that's very important. So we cannot have resistance if we want to improve our lives. We have to be open to new
Mhm.
ideas. We have to be open to let go. And that's what I witnessed.
Mhm.
Different backgrounds. There were females, males, but at the end, it was really life changing.
Hmm.
And that goes back to the root of the problems and the depth that we have been talking about. With so much information, we really don't touch that, what is our inner side, because nobody has the tools to touch it. And when we do it ourselves, we think we read a book, oh, we become, we know everything. Really, it has to be from an expert to touch the right spots. And we never do heart surgery on ourselves. We will not do it. That's what we tell, because it's really emotional and mental. And let me allow um, someone from a book or a podcast telling us exactly who we are. So, no, I was really grateful to be part of that environment, have that connections um, with people that came from different backgrounds, different cultures, different experiences. But there was it's great to have that cleansing. We go to a
Hmm.
spa, we really don't do any emotional cleansing, which is the
Yeah.
most important thing, and finding ourselves. So, yeah, no, it was wonderful, and
Well, we've been doing that work. Well, groups, I've been doing those groups since 1998, somewhere around there. So a long time. And the tools developed over the years. But the number one problem with a large crowd and a lecturer or a speaker, research has shown that the retention rate on the information is 2%. You'll only remember 2% of the total deal. So, what would be your probability on the retention rate from the work we did last week?
that is so true, because again, it's about the visual, auditory, but yet here we learn from application, and also the kinesthetic, the connections. And I would say 70 to 80% it stays with you, because we touch the spots that it's been scars, it's been wounds, nobody has touched them, and once you hit it, you cannot forget it.
No, that's
And
right.
we also justify things when we read things. We change, and we will talk about when we come about
Yeah.
finance. Our biases, we kind of become selective, don't we? We don't want to go where the pain is or their painful things. We kind of brush it over, and this allowed us to get deep. I just say one thing, and I've repeated this many times. Warren Buffett, we of course one of the greatest investors. We all look for him. Oh, give us, like, what are you doing with stocks? What are you doing with investment? And he continues saying that he would summarize success in life in 3 words, and it's called invest in yourself. And that is deeply, not just, and he loves to read books, but he's worked on himself so much that when he reads a book, he goes to depth of the book, not just feeling good about it to go on Wheel of Fortune or Trivia Pursuit or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It's not, life doesn't work that way. So
No.
that's what your work does. And that's what I do in my, when I do like trading classes, like one-on-one or like group, it's, yeah, it's great to know a lot about all the investing, but how do we apply that? How do we make money on it? It's not just about knowing everything, and we'll talk about that too.
And you're
So,
going to talk about that. Yes. Well, just another note on the workshops. I'm I've always been very you can't do your personal work when you don't feel safe.
absolutely.
So, safety first. The first thing we do in the workshops is ask our clients, what do you need to feel safe? And I would put that question out to our viewers today and just answer that, because a lot of people have never been asked that. What does it take to feel safe? For you to feel safe.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, when you read a book, there's nobody making you accountable or challenging you. If you're reading a part of the book and it's making sense to you or it's connecting to you, there's nobody there to help you to expand on that.
Right.
which is why facilitation is so important. We don't lecture, we don't teach, we don't coach, we don't do any of those things. They do the work. They were the ones up checking things off and creating the lists and interacting and talking to each other. They talked more than we did
Yeah.
at the end of the day. So that's why what we do is so important. And we get the results that we need and want. And certainly, I don't know, but we scored a steady string of nines and tens on what it was that they evaluated. So numbers don't lie, right? Our numbers guy sitting next to me here, numbers don't lie. And so they have to they have to give a score in 10 areas like environment, content, easy to understand. I had fun. I learned some new things about myself. We got like nines, tens, because we accomplished the mission.
Right.
And that's why we were in the first group and we had only that one group to work with that I knew about. And then at the closing of the day, they come to us and say, could you stay Thursday and Friday and we'll send you 13 men? So I thought, okay, words out, words out. All right. So what are we going to talk about today, Ramin? That's just a little catch up for our viewers because we've been away all week and we did some pretty serious work. And I'm really proud of you and me and our groups and their accomplishments and our accomplishments. So we're all back home safely, even though you had to take the milk run to California.
Yeah, it was, that was
We
really,
call it the milk run when you've got to go to one airport, wait, another airport, wait. That's called the milk run.
I see. Yeah.
So, all right. So over to you. What did you have planned for us today?
Okay. Well, we'll do. I'm just gonna follow up exactly what you said. By the way, that milk run, I never heard of it, but now I will never forget it.
Okay.
I lived through it. So if you would have told me a week ago, I would never understand it. Now, now I totally know what that means. I mean, a simple trip, it should have been a few hours. It took me 20 hours to get home. I'm like, I got to know quite a few airports. So anyway,
Right.
that was good. I'm just gonna follow up one more thing about the workshops that we did and the people we worked with, which was wonderful. You are not just affecting them, their lives. They have extended relationships, families, children, spouses, cousins, friends. And by touching them, it actually touches at least 10 more people. I mean, they were 25 people become 250 minimum. And that's the power of these workshops because, again, they touched it and they felt. And what happens going back to reading books or listening to podcasts, basically what we become the messenger of, just uh, a lecturer. We become just a parrot. You just, oh, I read this, you should listen to this. But we haven't felt it. So it's a lot harder to transfer that thought that we have. But when we actually felt it, we've done it, when you do something, it's just a lot easier to transfer that knowledge and feelings and just the communication style and skills that we learn to do it exact same thing with our children, for instance. And that affects the whole community positively. Imagine when you have thousands, that turns out to be millions, in my opinion. So that's,
Right.
I think a lot of people lack. It's just the easy
Yeah.
route. So
Oh, yeah. Well, I'd like to comment on that because what happens when we've shifted a belief system and we're speaking differently because we worked a lot on communication, as you recall. We're speaking differently, we're feeling differently, we're engaged. People are going to come up to them and say things like, have you lost some weight? Like you're different. Did you get a new hairdo? They connect it to something physical first because they recognize this person has shifted or made a shift. in their own behavior. So people go, it's not about them, always about them sharing the message. They do that, but people will actually ask them because they're picking up on the different energy and they're going, you're not, what? You went to a workshop? Oh, man, something happened because you're different.
Introducing Veteran House Alliance International Monthly 50/50 Raffle. Purchase your ticket today, link on display, and have a chance to win cash and help a great platform supporting veterans.
Absolutely.
I've actually had angry husbands contact me and ask me, what did I do to their wife? And angry women, what did you do to my man? Like, he's different. I like the old guy better. So it's like a risky path that we travel down, Ramin. It's a risky path. We're gonna tick somebody off, and that's a good thing. I know when I've done that mission accomplished.
Yeah, well, that's the status quo, right? So you
Right.
can look at the community, look at the politics, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And
Okay, well, let's go.
let's get touched.
Okay.
I promise. I think this is the last time I will talk about elections, but I think it's important. It's the closure. Yep. We started, we've done 2 shows briefly on the effects of the elections, how that will happen, financially, but also emotionally. So I thought, well, let's have a closure since we pretty much done, and the lessons we learned from that. So, and let's review that, and then also it comes back to the work like you do and how we go back and connect the dots. So that's what we will work with that as far as just putting everything into perspective and just have a closure and no more talking about elections for a while.
Okay.
Let me go back and just mention a couple of things that, on October 19th, which was about 3-4 weeks ago, we, as you know, I do on a weekly basis, I have a group of my membership that we do a market analysis on Saturdays, and we share that. And on October 19th, I did send out, my podcast and the video, and we made a prediction or forecast. It was not from me. It was I was just really just looking at the facts, and we said that the markets already know who's going to be elected. And then we also, the show that we did 2 weeks ago, exactly 2 weeks ago today, this, we had Jay Stoyan, and he was with us, and we reviewed some of the things that it was in my mind, but we also, at that time, we mentioned, this election will not be close. And that's what we mentioned, just based on what I've been seeing. And the last one was on November 2nd, my market analysis. I also mentioned that our markets, our options markets, telling us that this is not going to drag on like last time. They got within 2 days, the market exactly know what has happened. They will have very much clarity. And these are not me. I don't have, I'm not Nostradamus. And it's about reading the facts and understanding what the markets are telling us. And that brings us a lot of times in our decision making, our emotions take over. Our biases take over, our beliefs take over, rather than looking at the facts and the reality. And it happens, and this political environment was a very good example. After facts, how people try to justify things, then rather than really going into a little analysis of what happened from the facts point of view, whether we have emotional biases or not, this is what has happened. So it happens in investing. It happens a lot in trading. Just because I think the markets have to go up, markets don't care how I feel. They don't care if I have to pay bills. They don't care if, I have something, emotionally has happened to me. I really need the markets to relieve me and kind of vindicate me of my, my predictions. And markets do what they do. And what we have to do, we have to respect that, knowing that, hey, I am really nothing compared to this big market. So what I do, I have to adjust my position. The markets will not adjust their position. And basically what I was looking at and what I was doing, I was ignoring the pollsters and the polls and surveys, because people will respond differently in the environment that they are. And the pollsters, when we look at the financials, for instance, and now billions of dollars was spent. I tell you, who were the biggest winners? The biggest winners were, Vice President Kamala Harris's consultant and the pollsters, because they get their money first. So obviously they didn't help the matters. So everybody has opinions, but the reality is different. So what we say, you know, polls, it was talk the talk. The markets were walk the walk. It's actual money telling us this is what's happening. That's hard-earned money is going to the market, and that's what they're dictating. So how do I, interpret that? And again, if you look at, if our audience, anyone wants, I'll be more than happy to send them that the podcast we made or the video that we made October 19th. Basically, there were a few messages telling us, and I just review. So this is an education. So for our investors, they can look at things and see how they can interpret that. So what we were looking at, for instance, we could see the dollar has become really strong. The dollar was just, since end of September, was just going up. Other currencies are going down. In the meantime, the interest rates were going up. So on top of that, we are looking at the Bitcoin, the cryptocurrencies. Why? Why the cryptocurrency has to shut up so much? And then we were looking at, again, interest rates are going up, the dollar is going up, gold is going up, Bitcoin is going up, and then Mexican peso is going down. So how do we connect the dots? This is like 3.5 weeks before the election. So the idea was the markets were preparing for Trump's presidency. So what we are looking at, he did a 180-degree quite a few months ago, especially after talking to Elon Musk. He became a big advocate of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And one of the things he said, he's going to fire the SEC, which is the Securities and Exchange Commission, because they've been really resistant to this. So the markets were saying, oh, if Trump gets elected, this thing is going to go to the roof. And as a matter of fact, last night, Bitcoin hit $88,000, and that's the highest it's ever been. It's just almost 100,000. And also, we could see the interest rates going up, the bonds going down, and the bonds realize that with the tax cuts, with the tariffs and other things, we could have larger deficits. And they were looking at the future and seeing that, well, that's not going to help the interest rates. We also looked at gold, and with the tariffs, some inflationary, and the dollar, because of the protectionism, they were looking at the strength of the dollar. In the meantime, the Mexican peso is telling us, there's few things we have to be concerned with. Number one is with the tariffs, what's going to happen to our exports to the United States? Also, United States was going to manufacture the largest car factory in Mexico. Well, obviously, that's not going to happen. A lot of immigrants who come here, they send lots of money back to their country, and a lot of times, Mexico is a large population of immigrants. If they go back, there will not be that part of the transfer of funds from dollar to peso, which just helps their GDP. So also a lot of the immigrants come back. That's going to put pressure on the economy. So there is a lot of reasons. So those are the tea leaves we were looking at. So it was nothing to do with me predicting. It was I was just looking at the markets, and basically again we looked at on November 2nd. We saw the options market was pretty stable. Usually when there's unknown, the volatility goes really to the roof. But we noticed the volatility of the options, which was the following week, it stayed steady. It showed it was higher, obviously, on election day, but Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it was pretty steady. If there was uncertainty, you will have this big spike Friday, the following week, and we didn't see that. So basically, that comes from the knowledge and understanding how to look at different factors. So that's one of the things I hope our audience put the emotions aside. I notice obviously almost half a country is disappointed, so because they voted one way, but the reality is this is what has happened. So now we have to look back and see why this happened. One of the problems we have is, especially with polls and surveys, is this group mentality. There is this pressure. So if I'm sitting, five of us sitting in one place, when there's an uncomfortable question comes, we don't want to be that black sheep. So we kind of follow our group and we think the same way. Although inside, I might be thinking differently. So I can tell you, oh, I'm going to do this and do completely different. And we see that in Wall Street. A lot of analysts go to the same place. So they recommend the same stocks. And what happens that they say, well, if things go bad, at least I have 100 other analysts who did the same thing. So my clients are not going to blame me. So that's the herd mentality. And the other problem I saw was I think the media did not help the matters in this election. The reason was, it's the same thing that happens in investing. They tell you, oh, everything is great. Don't worry. The markets are going to the roof till it's too late. As a matter of fact, we use the cover of magazines and newspapers in investments as an inflection point. When they say, and I have thousands of samples, when a cover of magazine says, well, the markets couldn't have been better. We're making so many millionaires. That's the time you have to be worried. And that's when you start selling your positions. The same thing the media, I think, didn't help, especially the Democrats, was they were really focusing on a narrow, and they were really exaggerating the information, and also, I would say, even false information. And what has happened, they were pacifying things based on their biases. And it actually, what it did, it turned off some voters, but also it gave the false sense of security to other voters. The voters who wanted to vote, for instance, said, oh, we got this in the bag. Look at that. We are, and it's funny, I'm a historian, so I look at some of the things from the past, and also I recorded some of the, pollsters coming 2 or 3 weeks prior. They were like almost 90% sure this is in the bag. Well, that was misleading. So they have to be very careful to look at the facts. And the other thing you have to understand is, as children, as parents, relative children, we always tell them, we don't do name calling as a proper thing. So what we do is we don't label people. We don't say, for instance, we don't call our children, oh, you're a liar. You're a thief. You're a cheater. Children. So what we do, we separate the act from the actor. So we say, for instance, if your child steals something, you don't say, well, you're a thief. You ask them what happened. Well, the action happened, and we try to remedy the action. So as a group, we don't like to be labeled from the race point of view, from sex point of view, from, we don't want to be called names. And I think that backfired, and that labeling, because what happens is you generalize things, and people have a memory. They have their they have their past. We had like a lot of immigrants came from tyranny. They came from a lot of difficult places. And when the media told them something, they completely went the opposite because they've experienced things. As a matter of fact, I still, after all this, I know there's a lot of things going on. I'm an immigrant. And if you go around the world, United States is by far is the ultimate place a lot of people want to immigrate. It's just the opportunities and many things. And I don't blame some of the, illegal immigrants. They like to do it. But a lot of legal immigrants, they said we went through the process. I have my family members, they have been waiting for 15 years to get their green card. So what happens, those channels really has to be respected. And I think a lot of the shock was a lot of Latinos, voted differently. They were maybe misogynist or no, because they lived through that. They had to do it the hard way, and they don't like people who actually bypass the process. And I think that was one thing to understand. When it comes to immigration, you don't see people lined up going to North Korea, jumping over the wall from China. Oh, I can't wait to go to North Korea or Cuba. So that's the value. You see people want to go to Germany. They want to come to the United States. So or Canada. We have people lined up waiting to immigrate to Canada, United States, to Germany, Netherlands, Sweden, because of the opportunities being offered, and they want to leave the lifestyle that they had. They want to have better life for their children, and we should not misunderstand their objectives. They want a better life, and I think that was another problem.
We welcome you to advertise and promote your goods and services, and or brand your logo to 34 million subscribers on Canada Talks 167. Your investment will go towards our employment programs in the media industry for persons with disabilities and veterans.
The other thing I have to also mention, and I think it's very important, we see these gaps in classes. So the middle class is kind of being reduced. So you have the elite, very wealthy, and both parties agree on that. There's this elite system that they think, because they made the money, they know better than anyone else, but we don't know what has happened. And so then there's this big gap, and then we have people who live below the poverty line, the working class. And in order to find the success of country, you have to look at the growth of that middle class. And the reason I emphasize that, so as you know, my specialty was international finance and international investing. I was looking at emerging countries, and I'll give you one example. For instance, in India has classes, and they have, if you go to Mumbai, which used to be Bombay, you will see on one side the most beautiful hotels, and the other side you have people living the dirty water and hunger, and the children, but each one has accepted their role, which was wrong. But now the success of India is the growth of their middle class. We have over 400 million minimum that through the education and through also understanding independence, obviously technology and media, especially social media, has helped that. They want a better life because they see what's happening in developed countries. And when you have this middle class, it tremendously helps the actual growth of the economy. Why? Because if I'm coming from a poverty and poor situation, when I get to the middle class, now I want to own a refrigerator. I want to have a washer and dryer. Well, if I want that, I have to go buy it. Either they manufacture, if they don't, India has to manufacture it themselves, or they will import that. And when you have an import, well, there's transportation, somebody gets the job. There's a sales, somebody gets the job. If it's manufacturing, they have to build it. That's a job. The tax revenues because of the import and also the sales tax, and that creates revenues for the government. On top of that, when I'm in the middle class, I have refrigerator now, I have discretionary funds. I say, hey, family, let's go out to dinner this time. We go to a nice restaurant. That creates more jobs. So you can see just the movement in the middle class, it creates a lot of other economical benefits that allows the country to grow. They start investing, they start savings, and basically like banking in India, is millions and millions of people don't have access to the banks, and they didn't have access. For instance, they didn't believe, they did not trust. But now banking system is becoming strong because of the movements. Everybody bought gold. That was gold jewelry, gold, and so the reason I say that is to see the success of any economy, the middle class has to grow. They are the ones who basically work hard. They're the ones who really help the economy. When there's a recession, the very wealthy, it doesn't affect them. They still buy their Louis Vuittons or whatever they do. They travel. The poor, unfortunately, the dependents say they become poor. It's the middle class which gets affected the most, and that's the key. So my conclusion in that, and it comes back to again the work that you do and we do, is really helping everyone to understand themselves and get rid of their biases, which actually guides them to make decisions, which not always the right way. So when we have this unbiased, factual mind and watching things from outside, it allows us to not to need validations. I don't have to watch specifically all the, let's say, media or the social media that agrees with me. I tell you what I did. I received, and I'm very open. So every email I had from Democratic sides, I would receive their emails. I will have Republicans and I will have Libertarians, because it allowed me their angles. What are they doing and what they're asking? What are they offering? How their audience are receiving the messages. Because I'm open. I want to make decisions based on the facts, not what I believe. And, you know, I, I favor one party. Some of the ideas they had, I have favor other party. So I choose my own, um, uh, basically, opinion based on the factual things that I receive. I cannot 100% say, oh, I don't have any biases or beliefs, and that's what we are working on, to get rid of some of the really unhealthy belief system that I have. And as you know, and we've been working on things that the money beliefs, the poverty mentality versus prosperity mentality, hugely affects the decisions we make in our family life, in our careers, in politics, and in investments. All of those go hand in hand. And that's what I value your work, because we go through the depth of things. We go to find out what was that wound, what was the scars that we had, to take heal those, the traumas, all of those. Once we heal it, we can be very much open-minded, and nobody will really hurt us, because we have a solid ground to stand on. I don't need validation every second to see if I'm good, if I'm bad, if I made the right decision. And if I made a decision, that's my decision. And I'm should be pretty comfortable with that, even if it's a mistake. So I learned from that. So to conclude, all of that, this is something I came out this morning, and based on all the works that we've done, I really separate wisdom and intelligence. And I think there's a lot of emphasis in our school system, in our work environment, on smartness and intelligence, people who are great at one thing only. There is many different ways of intelligences, and we are not taught about that. At schools, nobody teaches us about critical thinking. They don't talk about logic. They don't tell us. Even I love philosophy. Not that you get a job. I mean, unfortunately, if you graduate as a philosophy major, you're very limited. But I think philosophy about life is very important to understand. So this is a quote I came up with this morning at 5 o'clock, and what I say is, wisdom comes from our imperfection, the failures that we got, while intelligence seeks perfection. And that's the difference. And in intelligence, we look at other people based on, or because we think we're too intelligent, we know better. But it's the wisdom we have to seek. And that's why in a lot of cultures, and there's the elders have a very high place because they've gone through the life, they've had failures, they've seen other people's failures. And I think failure and obstacles are challenges are best lessons. And that's what the, the,
Mhm.
the problem is. So anyway, that's my little
All right.
conclusion to our elections.
So we do have a few comments I'd like to put up. Just Sylvia's here this morning. Good morning, Sylvia.
Morning, Sylvia.
And Kathy's here. Um, what she's saying is it has just be said, Mexico is allowing China to ship cars, etc., to Mexico. It will interfere with raise tariffs or obviously have an unfavorable effect on the economy. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's, majority of economists, tariffs are not good. We tried that in 1930s, and that's effect because what it is really taxation on everyone, and that's one of the things that we see the inflation, but gold went up. So uh, we shall see. President Trump has said, or President-elect Trump has said that he will do that. We'll see how far that will go. His idea is we'll have the growth within. And of course, the retaliation from Europe, they're going to do that. They want to tax. And so, yeah, so, again, a lot of economists are not in favor of that. But remember, the whole world has become very populist, nationalist. So we were, starting 2002, after China got into the WTO, the World Trade Organization, we became very global economy. Everything we did was very interdependent. And in the last 2 or 3 years, we've become more nationalistic, less globalization. China has been hurting. So what is happening? We see the elections in this, even in Europe, is become more populist or anti-immigrant, has become, if they're not the dominant things, they have a lot of uh, favoritism from the population. So things are changing. So, but it's good or bad. The open markets are always good for economies because of the obviously reduces the cost of things that we can say. We can go to dollar store and buy things that it used to be, my God, 10 times that the price. So competition is always good. Globalization brings competition. Competition is good for consumers. So this is a kind of unknown territory in a modern economy. It has been tried. Few countries done that. So yes, and that's what's China is involved in so many places. In the Middle East, you go and you see their cars. I can't even. Some of the names are really funny, and they will not have a nice meaning in English, but that's what people drive, and it's kind of offensive names, but that's Chinese names. So when it will never be in the United States because the name will be changed. So it's like Pinto when I think it was Pontiac. It's like they I think Pinto was beans or something. They did it in Mexico and they failed because that was not a good name to choose for a car. So you have to be very careful from marketing point of view. But going back to Sylvia's, yeah, so we have to wait and see. As open, market advocate, I don't like the tariffs, but the idea is maybe initially it will create the growth,
Mm-hmm.
and but obviously the wages will go up, and that will create inflation. And but on the other hand, it might produce some tax revenues. We shall see. But things will change. You
Mm-hmm.
know, in the rhetoric will come because you get elected, but uh, we'll see. A year from now, we'll look back and see how much of that has been done. So,
The Disability Channel would like to thank our existing sponsors. We really appreciate the support and kindness from the BIAs across the GTA, Ontario, Canada, and our friends in the USA. We love making new friends. Thank you for supporting our existing employment programs.
So Kathy has a little comment on a totally different level and a totally different perspective, but just on a personal note, this is an observation she's made. And I don't know that Trump gets away with it, but Trump seems to get away with the rude behavior, but not Kamala. Well, I don't know that she got away with it. I don't know. Any comments on that?
well, again, it's the perception, right? So what we
Right.
do, it's one of I have to tell you is I think that Kamala did not, the Vice President Kamala Harris did not have the advantage that Trump had. Trump was a known quantity. He's done this all his life. I mean, he's been on TV. He's a TV personality. People understand. You know, he's you're fired. I mean, I remember The Apprentice. You know, he's very rude in that. So he has this arrogance a lot of times. But you know, the people knew about that. Nothing surprised them about the things he said. And I talked about labeling. I mean, he calls the other group, "You're stupid." It's like he comes out and say that you were doing that, and you know people get offended. And there's a lot of proper people, of course, especially educated. But that's not the way to talk. So, but he's done it so much it doesn't really surprise the public. But when you put a major label on a group, when you call them your like garbage or Nazis, that offends people because it comes from a place that they're not used to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference. So there was a surprises. So it's almost again, I try I'm try to be very proper, and sometimes from my heart I like to say something. It's the same thing that you are in a party. There's one guy who's like uses jokes, profanity. He's always there and say, "Oh my God." And you're used to it. You expect him to come up with profanity and jokes around, and people don't get shocked. On the other hand, if I came up with some profanity, holy sugar, everybody is going to be, what happened to Ramin? What is going on? So it's the expectations, right? So
Mm-hmm.
something gets exaggerated sometimes. I hope that explains, Kathy. Yeah, he's rude, but everybody knows that cousin that in the Thanksgiving dinner is the one who's gonna come up with funny jokes or really rude jokes, and they just shrug it off, whether it's
Yeah.
right or wrong. I don't want to justify that, but I'm just saying it's all about expectations and
Mm-hmm.
what they're used to. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Well, um, yeah, it's what you can get away with because it's who you are and what you've done. And if he didn't do that, uh, people would be going, "Well, what happened to Don?
the authenticity, right?
He's being so polite and kind, and what?" And that would be criticized.
Yes,
So
because
you're in a no-win situation
yeah.
because either way, you're going to get judged.
One thing I have to say, though, I think he's mentioned it after the first assassination attempt. He said if people notice he's changed, he's become a little, just a tiny
Softer.
bit softer. He's a little
Yeah.
humbler. You never look at him as a humble person. So
Yeah.
and so that I think it affected him. But generally, yeah. Then they say, oh, he's not authentic. What is he doing? Is he having these consultants telling him how to behave? And And I tell you, whether you like him or not, he doesn't have filters. So every show that he goes, he is the same way. And there was a lot of votes, a lot of Republicans. They're anti-Trump because of all his behavior, and they would never vote for him. So basically, because of his behavior and the things that he does. So yeah, he turns off quite a few people. Unfortunate thing in this election was it was not pro, it was like pro and anti.
Yeah.
And that's the reason, again, I'm just looking at the facts. 10 million less people voted for Kamala from Biden. Biden had 10 million more people who voted for him. So apparently there was a lot of people who sat home. They didn't really like Trump and they will never vote for him, but they also didn't vote. So there was no vote for. There was a lot of votes anti. And that's not how the politics should work, because at the end of the day, your leader is, they have to perform. They have to do what.
If we
So
get the job done.
they
Yeah.
get the job. That's my observation. I mean, if you work for a company, you have a CEO or manager, you like them rather than saying that the other CEO was so bad, it was trash. And you want to say, okay, that's great. We got rid of him. What are we going to do? So I think these are the things that I see from outside.
Mhm.
And
Well, for me, my perspective, what if there's one thing, I admire about Donald Trump is he does not engage or spend any energy worrying about what you think about him. He doesn't take anything personally. He doesn't care if you don't like him. He doesn't care what you think about his persona. And you know that just in itself is huge, because then he can take risks that other people wouldn't be able to take, because they would be worrying about what somebody would say or worrying about that outside judgment. And don't we all operate like that?
absolutely.
We have our own set of rules for ourselves that can be very, and you and I talked about this on the trip, that can be very limiting. And when I just recently had a near-death experience, which I did, I threw out a whole bunch of rules. And I'm going to be more verbal and vocal. And if I have to say a swear word, I'll be saying it. Because that's what gets the job done. Not spending all that time, all those years that I worried I'm the girl who couldn't go to the garbage can without her makeup on because I was afraid of what the neighbors would think. All that energy that I spent doing that, I could have had 5 more businesses on the go. I could have. So I understand that part of him.
Yeah.
He doesn't care if you don't like him. He's
Yeah,
not,
I think that's
he's
huge.
not running a popularity contest. He's talking about getting the country in shape, or same with whoever the candidates are.
Exactly. And I think that's very important for our audience. It goes beyond that. It's that all our lives we walk on eggshells, whether
Yeah.
it's at work, whether it's on relationships, our family. So we are never ourselves. And there's so much hush hush. Oh, the cousin who does a lot of drugs that the mother doesn't want anyone to know. We'd say, oh, we got to stay up, rather than going out and help them, or at least offer them a solution. So everybody's, again, is very concerned. And you totally mentioned about that, we've worried about what other people think. That's why we have problems saying no. And you know how many
No.
people, they actually suffer because of that. So it is important, whether it's in politics or work or life, generally relationship.
Mhm.
And I've learned to be more vocal, but even like my children's school, I'm not going to take it. It's, and I teach my son and my daughter, and that you got to stand for yourself. And again, it's not about just Donald Trump, it's both parties. They both, and people respect that because they know at least where you're coming from. And it goes
Right.
Cold War, Russia knew what United States is. United States, they hated each other or they were enemies, but they respected each other. It's amazing. Now we live in a world, we don't even know who's our enemy as far as talking about life and death. People can show up. I mean, you see agents of another country comes here, tries to assassinate someone. It's like, wait a minute. This is not the world of the clarity that we were used to. So it is that it's important to have that clarity and know, hey, if I'm talking to you, you're going to use a foul language, but I know where you stand. And I respect that. I don't like you. Sorry, I don't mean I like you, but I won't like you.
Oh, I thought you were talking about me. Okay.
Generally, so please, yeah. I will respect you, but I don't have to like you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key. That's the strength. So yeah, I totally agree with you. And I'm trying to learn myself. Every day, as you know, I'm just trying to be a better person. And that's one of the challenges I had.
Yeah.
Past. So
that's cool. Well, you know what? Our time is up already.
Oh my God. Well, I talked too much.
No, you talked great. You talked great.
Again. So
yeah, great.
Next.
Yeah, well, we'll be back next week and we can continue with whatever. And we've got some plans for the show. And I think our audience is really going to like what we've got coming up. And thank you for being here today. And guess what? I see shifts in you today.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
You shouldn't have come and spent a week with me on the road, or those people all those people that you met, and you did some of your own personal work. So I just wanted to let you know that that's obvious in the way that you're presenting yourself today. And I bet I have viewers who would agree with me. You bet. Look at this. Aha. See? All right. Well, thank you so much, Ramin, and wonderful post-election comments and observations. And you've been watching the Today Show here on the Disability Channel. And I'm Dr. Laurie Davis, your host, with my partner over here in crime, Dr. Ramin Modiri, sharing information that we feel is important for all of our well-being. So talk to you later. I'll be back on the air. It's a double feature on Tuesdays. I'll be back in an hour with our NHLer, Doug Smith, and he and I are going to chat some things up today. So the press box, please come back and join us in an hour's time. So bye for now.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Interstate, got a load that can't be late, gotta get it there by 9. Went up ahead in front of me, I can't believe what I see, people standing in a line. They say they're against violence, but what they're doing makes no sense, keeping me from my drop, blocking everyone till the demands are met and done. This insanity has got to stop. Hey, hey. Socialism, communism, white power, nationalism, and Antifa and the BLM. They like to tell you what to think, how to live, what to speak, but rules don't apply to them. They say they're only doing good, yet burning down neighborhoods. There's just no respect. Trying to make the world go woke, I think it's all a big joke. I'm politically incorrect. Always say they're working for us every day, but got their hand on our last dime. Lockdowns, handouts, prices rising all about, while people turning their lives to crime. Liberal DAs letting criminals out today, no jail or punishment. At the end of the day, the innocent seem to pay, thanks to Brandon and our government. The fun police abolish eyes, liberals pushing misadvice. There's no law and order. BP and state police told to process and release illegals at the border. Immigration invasion, nothing on the news station. What did you expect? I guess coming to the USA and doing it the legal way is now politically incorrect. Musicians, actors, athletes, the media, and fake news, giving their opinion like it's a religion, thinking we don't have a clue. Mean tweets, fact checks, boys and girls changing sex. To this I must object. We need hardworking, bill-paying, God-fearing, and people praying. Become politically incorrect.